welcome back to the 5465 podcast. I'm Owen.
I'm Cameron, I'm back.
Finally. And we got rivalry weekend. I can't say that word. Rivalry weekend to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting weekend. Some upsets. Let's talk about the three surprises first. South Carolina gives any hope that Clemson had out.
Yeah, and I think
Spencer Rattler's hand, by the way.
With a win like that, I think Rattler's kind of stat. Even though they haven't really brought in amazing kids, and Bieber has made a lot of questionable decisions, he's really turned the team around at the end of the season, so I think that kind of gives any hope.
And they're all young. It's all sophomores, freshmen.
Everyone's running back like a fifth-year senior.
Just one player.
But that one player is a reason they have like 6 or 9 wins.
Yeah, okay.
Serious. Rattler had games where he did like 100 yards and a pick, and they had like 30 points.
Any player's replaceable in college football. Ohio State blown out at home by Michigan. That was a surprise for me. I'm kind of mad that I changed my mind like 2 weeks ago, because I've been saying since week 1 Michigan beats Ohio State. But I changed my mind because I thought it'd be tough to play at the shoe. McCarthy, usually not a very accurate quarterback. He pulled something out of his butt.
I have a very hot take with McCarthy's that game.
Yeah, lucky.
I still watching the entire game, alright? And I had to fake be a Buckeye fan. I got paid to cheer for Ohio State for $10. Still basically robbed. That's illegal as bank robbing. Right? The job did pretty good. It's just the hype still is way too much. And I don't think with McCarthy there they can ever beat a team like Georgia or McCarthy this year. McCarthy's a 5-star. He's got a lot of potential. He's shown it. But I don't think they'll be able to beat a team like Georgia or even Alabama or I don't think they'd even beat TCU.
I thought Ohio State was more built for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that really I think is the big factor.
Coaching?
Day struggles in big situations, in big games. I think Stroud struggles in big games. I mean, you look at even the Maryland game, he really struggled. He didn't have a great game at all. He was very inaccurate. This obviously gets rid of his Heisman hopes. And
I think coaching failed Stroud 2 years in a row now. Stroud's got a lot of talent. They had the best receivers, and I don't know.
He's got the two of the probably the best receivers in football, and I just don't find him very. He's improved a lot from last year, but I don't think he makes some dumb decisions, and he's not a pro quarterback in my opinion. But
thing is, I think coaching failed in this game. Because obviously on TV you can't see the entire shot, but Ohio State, usually they're bound for a big play every other possession. They weren't even going for a big play. Even though they're now by 15 with 5 minutes left, they're running the ball up the middle, 5-yard out routes. Then you look at they had a will to win after, in the fourth quarter, Michigan that's where it's not all about talent, it's about grit, it's about all that other stuff, and that's what Michigan showed more of. Ohio State's got way more talent than Michigan, I can promise you that. They have more depth. But they don't have the coaching.
Harbaugh's a better coach than Day.
Yeah.
And I thought they had a genius defensive game plan coming into this.
So
really made Stroud struggle.
Harbaugh changed his defensive scheme into the first one. He wanted to check something out. That makes me think he knew they were going to win that game because he tried something out in that game. Like, who does that in the biggest game? But all their touchdowns were off of, amazing 60-yard plays, 70-yard run, 30, 40, 50-yard touchdowns. And all of them, whether the running back was untouched at the line of scrimmage, or the guy was so open downfield that dear God, I hope he can hit him. Like, as a D1 quarterback, you need to be able to hit them. And even some of those were still really bad, but he was that open, it didn't matter. So even though he got the job done, which he did his job again. He won the game, and he had really good stats. But a lot of the big plays were just wide open. I mean, I hope you can hit the guy. I really do.
And some of them weren't even behind them. They had to wait for the ball.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought it was all in the receivers. For those.
People are going to look at the stats and say how amazing he played, but just from watching the entire game, it's like Edwards. They're going to look at his stats and say, wow, 200 yards?
Oh,
he
yeah.
had 1 rushing yard in the first quarter.
Yeah.
First half.
I only got to watch, maybe 3 quarters of it. 3 eighths. Or 1/8. Or what the heck?
Yeah, you watched the first 5 minutes?
5/8 of it. Probably 5/8 of it. And from what I saw, Ohio State's defensive line actually did a solid job. It was just those 2 big breaks that they had that really racked up his numbers.
Yeah.
And
That's like 100.
McCarthy didn't look that great to me.
It's if you look at the stats, you go, wow, he played an amazing game. Just watching the throws were behind. They had to wait on the ball. That he was lucky they were so wide open that it didn't really matter. Like, I remember when they hit the really long ball to Cornelius Johnson, the second one, Gus Johnson goes, and they said he couldn't throw the deep ball, and they showed the replay, and it shows Johnson waiting on the ball like this, and that just shows, honestly, he won again, so I'm not going to hate, he did his job, he did something only another Michigan quarterback's done the last 25 years is wear the shoe. So he tried something out in the first one, didn't work, went back to normal, and then boom, they had a big play to Harrison in the second quarter. Other than that, they really field goal.
I think the reason why they knew they sucked the flag in the middle of the field. You don't just bring a flag to a game if you don't know you're gonna win.
I figured they knew they were. That's crazy. Like they knew. That's insane. I think
Harbaugh's the second best coach in college football right now.
He's the first.
Save it.
Save it. I think he goes. We'll see. I just don't want Harbaugh and Day to be the 2 guys that just sit there and they get to the playoff, but they can never do anything other than that. I want eventually one of those teams have to break off with a great team. I'm starting to think maybe this year's Michigan team, if McCarthy can really turn it up in the playoffs and hit the deep ball again.
11 for 36 on the season on deep balls. I saw that stat. That's ugly.
That just kind of. I hope every Michigan fan saw that stat just to know the eye test is way more valuable than stats.
And moving on. Also, Oregon State.
Huge comeback. I mean, Oregon, you really choked your season away. Shout out Marco Brewer.
Oh yeah, Marco
our
Brewer.
boy. Hopefully have you on sometime soon. That was a huge comeback.
Yeah.
I mean, Oregon turned the ball over 4 of the 4 last possessions they had. That's just a choke job, but Oregon's already out. Doesn't really matter.
Top 10 the only teams that still have a chance are Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, or not Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, USC.
I think Bama might have a chance now.
I don't think Bama gets in, dude.
If USC and TCU,
they lost to LSU, they lost to Tennessee. They're not even in a championship game.
If USC and TCU lose, then Ohio State's gonna get it. Who's gonna be that team? Who's gonna be right there? It's gonna be Bama.
I don't think USC and TCU will lose. I think
you predicted that.
I think those are my 2 upsets.
If one were to lose, it'd be TCU. I think because Kansas State, the games they've lost have been huge flukes, and then when they win big.
Yeah.
Like they've looked dominant. If they didn't lose to Tulane early in the season, then choked versus I remember the other team they lost, but they choked. I mean, they're in the playoff conversation.
Who were we talking about?
Kansas State.
Oh yeah. Kansas State. They killed Texas, didn't they?
Yeah, I remember in the beginning of the season they beat Oklahoma 56-0. I know Oklahoma's not good, but you don't beat
a Power 5 well, usually. I mean, they still got a lot of Lincoln Riley's recruits, and they're still a solid team.
They're a 6 or 7 win team. You don't win by 56-0 because the team's that bad. You don't mean you're that good.
Yeah.
Unless it's like UConn or something.
SEC championships: LSU, Georgia.
Georgia by about 30.
Georgia, yeah. Purdue, Michigan, Big Ten, Michigan.
I think Michigan will take 38-14. We'll have a closer game at half, and then they'll break out.
Yeah.
I can see this Purdue not being done forever. Kind of has
Purdue's gonna do. O'Connell having a solid game.
Purdue's gonna do what Northwestern did. They're gonna give out free tickets and stuff, and they're gonna have that place with a decent amount of Purdue fans.
And it's in Indiana.
Yeah, but
it's pretty close to.
Just how Michigan travels. I mean, Michigan could go to Purdue and probably have more Michigan fans than Purdue fans.
ACC, UNC, Clemson doesn't matter. Clemson wins. I think it's a slight possibility UNC can step it up if Drake May has a good game. I just don't see it happening.
Just depends, really.
It's college football. You never know who's going to show up and who doesn't. I mean, Clemson struggled against South Carolina, and Rattler had a great game. And Rattler's him, first of all. And Big 12, TCU, Kansas State. I think Kansas State pulled off the upset and ends the Frog season. I think if a healthy Adrian Martinez comes in their RPO and option offense. I don't know if they can handle. If TCU's defense can handle that, and they were beating them by like 14, and then Adrian Martinez got hurt and they came back. So if Adrian Martinez is healthy, I think TCU could.
You're seeing two different TCU teams from where they played and at the end of the season now.
That's one game against Iowa State. You can't compare it.
I mean, they looked good. I mean, Decker, not Decker, that's Iowa State's quarterback. He sucks. I mean, TCU looks really. I just don't see TCU or USC losing. They made it this far, and I
think Washington can be. I think it really depends what Washington defense shows up. We know Washington's offense can show up, and Michael Penix. If Penix wouldn't have lost to who did they lose to?
They lost to someone pretty bad. Which I guess that really pissed me off.
Washington. It depends on what defense shows up. If they play like they did against Oregon, or they didn't even.
They lost to Arizona State.
Yeah, Arizona State.
And UCLA.
UCLA's not a bad loss.
Starting to give you one. I mean, every game.
Who's the game I'm thinking of that they held to like no points?
Colorado?
No.
It's the only game. Portland State?
How many did UCLA score?
49?
Yeah, their defense.
I mean,
their defense needs to show up against USC. I think USC might actually score 50. With how prolific their offense is.
Just looking at every game, it's 49-39, 28-21.
So it's going to be a shootout. We know that. We already knew that. Penix needs to have the game of his life. It just depends on if they can at least slow down the Caleb Williams train.
I mean, I think if they win that game, he's 100%.
Well, right now it's like 85% Caleb Williams.
I mean, it has to be. I mean,
Corum had a chance if he would have played. He was a decoy for like 2 plays. I think it's kind of risky, but I think Michigan's offense looked better without Corum. I'm not saying it is better, but it looked better.
See, I beg to differ because usually, I mean, I think Edwards playing how he did. I think it just kind of shows that it was almost all the offensive line.
Let's look at Michigan's games this year. My phone won't freeze.
But you remember, they hit 2 70-yard plays at the very end of the game.
I mean, that's not coincidence, in my opinion.
I mean, the offensive line blocks for Edwards and Edwards ran.
I know that. I'm just saying.
Just how their offensive line is.
Give me one moment, please. 1 moment.
I mean...
One moment!
Exactly.
No, I'm trying to
I think this shows how Edwards... I mean, the offensive line kind of carried Corum.
Alright. So the only game... So they scored 34 against Maryland. Whatever. I'm not counting Hawaii, Colorado State, and UConn. They scored 27 on Iowa. Iowa has good defense. 31 on Michigan. 41 on Penn State. 29 on Michigan State. Yeah, Sparty. We're not counting Rutgers. They scored 34 on Nebraska, 19 on Illinois, and 45 on Ohio State.
They didn't have Corum last week for the entire second. They had Corum for, 3 to 4 quarters?
Yeah. And they didn't, I think it balanced out the pass game a lot. So, you can't just heavily rely on Corum to be able, they did that on the number 2 team in the country.
Ohio State, I think, same problems they've had in the last couple of years. Is ever since that 2020 team? No, not even that 2020. Like the 2019 Ohio State team. After that, their corners have just been awful. And that has cost every game they've lost.
2020 they were good. They had
Sean Wade was probably one of the worst players I think to ever come out of Ohio State.
They made it to the national championship.
Yeah, because of Fields. Fields isn't their offense that year. Wilson, Olave,
and
Trey Sermon.
Completely shut down Clemson's offense with Travis Etienne,
but then
Trevor Lawrence.
Devontae Smith would have had, he had 200 yards at halftime.
Devontae Smith was nuts.
They had, I think, Mechie or it was Waddle, who came off a leg injury and could barely walk, had 70 yards. That was one of the best Bama teams, don't get me wrong. Jones, Harris.
Nobody was stopping that team. I don't know why you can compare it to that game.
Those corners that year weren't still great. They weren't amazing.
We'll come back to that. Let's talk some college basketball. We'll start off with my top 10. I got Kansas. I think their overall strategy of the game and the addition of Grady Dick this year and having a guy that can shoot and be that shifty is really good for them. Texas, haven't watched a lot of them, but just like box scores and stats, they've been, they murdered Gonzaga, who's a great team. Houston at 3, they struggled against Kent State last night, but they still won, and they're one of the most talented teams in the country and well coached. UNC at 4, Caleb Love is probably we'll get back to that, the 4th best player and top 5 player in the country. 5 Arizona, or back to 4. UNC has also the second best rebounder in the country in Bacot. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Bacot. So that's awesome for him. You need to be able to have a great big to be able to succeed in college basketball. I think
Pete Nance has been crazy good this year.
Pete Nance has had a great year. His mid-range has been really effective for them. Arizona, I haven't watched much of them besides them beating up on. I think they beat up on Crete.
And then they killed him the inside, and then trying to hit shots in the last 2 minutes to make the game.
Yeah. Virginia, I haven't watched a lot of them. Can't comment on it, but just box scores. Duke, same old Duke. They're still great. Creighton's a wow to me. I've watched 3 of their games. What's the guy's name? Number 55. Their shooter, lefty, shoots
The
from
white
the
dude?
logo. Yeah.
I don't know his name. He's good. He was there last year.
Yeah, he's really good. Their point guard really controls the game well. That's point guard's job, and he does a great job at that. They have a
Good
great
big man.
7'3" big.
He can shoot too.
He
That's
can
always
shoot.
big. It's just he's not very physical, and that's why Arizona's big was able to.
Michigan State doesn't have a pretty record, but they've had a hard schedule. They lost to a good Bama team.
Without their 2 best scorers and Hall
yeah,
and
without.
Jenkins.
Yep.
Or 2 of the 3. I think Hall is their best scorer now.
Yeah.
Especially the Oregon game, how he had a double-double with 18.
And beat Oregon. You guys beat
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
All he lost is by 1.
Yeah. And you lost to Gonzaga by 1, and you lost by how much there? Alabama?
9.
9. So it's not too bad. Then Arkansas. Arkansas is just so athletic. Well coached. Great job recruiting by
I think they have the best player in the country. One of them.
the guy with the.
AJ Black.
Yeah, that's who my number 1
So
is.
my top 10, I got Houston at 1. They looked really good. Struggled somewhat last night, but in college basketball, if you win, you win. It doesn't always have to be pretty because you play 30 games a year. 2 is Texas. I think they won't stay at 2 because Texas is like last year. They live and die off the 3 ball, and TCU
Yeah,
USC.
TCU or USC. I think they'll beat TCU or USC.
I think they could beat TCU. I think USC would be a dogfight.
Dogfight, yeah. I don't know yeah. But Georgia would slaughter them. I think they would completely shut down Corum and put so much pressure on McCarthy. Every time you send pressure on McCarthy, he struggles. And then my other hot take, I should have wrote it down. I had such a good hot take. I do think Washington beats USC in a shootout.
I expect it.
Alright, what's your 2 hot takes?
So my first hot take is that I think Ohio State will get back in the playoff race. I think USC or TCU, just because those teams, neither of them in the playoffs, so they're playing for so much more than a conference championship that game. They have so much pressure. Especially TCU, who preseason wasn't ranked, no hype, wasn't even top 3 in their conference to start. They've shut everyone up. They've had a great year. They're a great football team. I think they could hang around with Michigan or a USC or Ohio State, but I don't think they could win. I think they can hang around them. But I just think I think USC or TCU are going to lose. The more I think about it, the more maybe USC gives up 50. Maybe TCU folds under pressure.
Well, their defense is
Ohio
horrible.
State, they sneak in. Ohio State's that 4th spot. Ohio State Georgia first round would be one of the greatest semifinal games there are. Even though I think Georgia would win, it'd just be a great semifinal game and bring more attention to the playoff semifinals because usually those games are really boring. Usually blowouts, you know who's going to win. So I think that'd be fun. And my second one is that Gonzaga is playing down other teams' levels. I think Gonzaga should be right now a top 4 to number 1 team, but they're not playing like it. They struggle versus Michigan State team, who's good, but with they're off. And in the tournament last year, they started out the season like this again. They 2 amazing wins. Got right inside the top 5. And then they get cold, and then they lose 3 in a month, 4 in a month, and then so it makes their record look as bad. That's why in March they'll get like a 6th or 5th seed still, in my opinion. But they're still a dangerous team. At 3 at Virginia, they played in a tournament with Baylor, Auburn, and UCLA, and they came out of that tournament 2-0. Those are 4 of the top 15 teams in the country. They won it, so that's always impressive. Keep them there. I think they'll obviously go down. They're hot right now, and so I think they won't stay there. But as right now, Virginia's by 3. Florida's by Kansas. Florida's Kansas. Green Nick looks really good. They lost to Tennessee, but oh well.
One loss in college
You're
basketball.
gonna lose. Tennessee's still a pretty good team. They lost to Colorado. That's a weird team if you actually look at the record. They're pretty bad, but they have 2 ranked wins. So 5's Duke. Like I said, they haven't won pretty yet, but let's get. You don't have to win by a lot. Just gotta win unless you're playing some really bad team. They're playing Xavier. They won by 8. That's fine with me. They're looking good. Ryan Dim's looking really good. They're rebounding. They're less disciplined without Coach K, but new coach. They got to fit into the role in the system, which I think they will. 6 is UNC. They haven't looked great in one of the games this year. They haven't really pulled away, but that doesn't really matter. They have the best roster, and as soon as they all get together, because they just have so much talent, that as soon as they're playing a little bit selfish on the court, especially with Caleb Young and Caleb Love, yeah, he's playing. Some of the shots he takes in crunch time are the greatest. Unless it goes in, then oh well. But they just play selfish, and I think as soon as they get that down, because they go 9 players in that team are NBA talent level. So as soon as they get down that, they'll be almost unstoppable. 7's Creighton. They look pretty good. I mean, if they can just figure out how to stop the big in the inside of Arizona, they'd walk out of the Maui undefeated in a top 4 team. But they're still good. They play in the Big East. I think that conference is having a kind of an off year this year, I think, especially with Villanova not looking very good at all.
Providence.
I mean, no team in that conference really looks great except for them. 8, Arkansas. They have a really tough schedule to start off the year, so having a record of only 1 loss right now that's really good. It looks pretty good. Really good team, good coach. I think they're my SEC favorite. 9, Auburn. Haven't really watched them. I've just seen it's hard. Last year they had a pretty good roster, pretty good team. Lost in the third round of the upset to Miami, and they didn't return Jabari Smith, but that hurts. He was a stud. Hurt a lot. Good start to the year. Number 10, which more controversial, is Gonzaga. They have played a gauntlet. They've got beaten up. I mean, the only part of that team that they cared was Drew Timmy, and so this for Mark Few is good. It's gonna be a tough year for him because he's always had. They're usually a pretty old team. I mean, he gets kids to stay there, and this year they're only having Timmy, and then the rest are freshmen and sophomores. I think as soon as he kind of gets it down, they'll be fine. And they play in a really bad conference, so if they get past this non-conference schedule, they're not going to lose many other games.
Yeah, a team that's upset in tournament though.
Yeah. Yes, totally agree. So that's my top 10. Indiana, Michigan State are sniffing that top 10. Arizona, I kind of forgot them, but I throw them in over Gonzaga at 10. They're more deep in the top 10, I think, because Mountain champions. They're really good. Yeah, Indiana, Michigan State are sniffing that top 10. Indiana's just got to beat someone, and they're the top 6 for me. That's what I see if they can. So, yeah.
And Indiana's kind of, they were one of my preseason teams to be really good this year.
They're a wild card for me so far.
Yeah.
It's not seeing play some.
Maryland's been. Here's some surprises for me. Creighton, they were ranked top 10, top 11 going into the season, but nobody really expected them to stay. And they've done a really good job. And whoever their coach is, I don't know his name, but he's done a great job there in keeping his players. That's one thing John Calipari needs to learn how to do. Gonzaga's struggle. I expected them to be really good this year and Timmy to be player of the year. They've lost bad to 2 teams now. Grady Dick, no, I didn't see that coming. I mean, he's a top recruit, but a freshman usually doesn't do what he's been doing. And I love watching him play. He's got a really nice jump shot.
He's always on the court. You turn on a Kansas game, he's on the court every time. He does not.
That's not normal for a freshman.
Especially at Kansas.
Then Arkansas. I thought they were going to be just a really athletic team that can't I can't that just aren't mentally and IQ and smart enough to be able to finish these games, and they've proved me wrong. And here's your surprises.
So yeah, my surprises so far is Purdue and Zach Edey. I still think they're gonna fall down the ladder because their roster really hasn't. They're not. That game's not going good, but I'm still not big on Edey. He's kind of cost them their tournament games the last 2 years. Always gets in foul trouble in big games. Any good coach just go right at him. He gets tired very quickly. Other than that, they're doing pretty good. Maryland also, kind of shocker. I didn't think they'd go in that tournament, beat Miami by 30, St. Louis by 30. Gotta give them their respect. Creighton, I said top 10 team. Didn't really expect them to stay there. I don't think really anyone did. But so far they've played good. Those preseason tournaments can be kind of tricky though. So any team that would good or bad in a preseason tournament, it's really hard to tell still because those tournaments really don't explain the full picture ever. Duke, I said, that would surprise me is because the players that are stepping up on their team are like Ryan Young, transferred 5th-year senior for Northwestern. When he transferred there, didn't think he'd get any playing time, to be honest. He really didn't. He might have started on Northwestern. I don't really remember. But he's averaging 12, 13 boards a night. So it's weird seeing them kind of transition without Coach K. UConn, they're also sniffing by top 10. They're 7-0. They're playing the PK80 championship tonight versus Iowa State. I think UConn's gonna win. I mean, they're big. I don't remember his name, but he was there last year. Really good. They're 7-0. They're by 11 or 12 team in the country right now. And then obviously Texas. But I think they're gonna shock us of how they're gonna start losing some games because letting down at the 3-ball, they're gonna die eventually.
All right. Here's our top 5 players. Mine is Anthony Black. He's wowed me. He's got dribble pull up, which is really important. Let's game come to him. Which also, you're not forced anything. Caleb Love really struggles with that, in my opinion, so he's not my 1.
Yeah.
My 2 is Caleb Love. If he did let the game come to him and not force a lot of shots, he'd be my 1. But he's just so talented, so shifty. He's got a great shot. Actually moves a lot like a T-Mac. 3 is Grady Dick. He's been a big surprise for me. He's going to be a lottery pick. 4 is Oscar Sheboy. He's just so dominant. Great rebounder, so strong, great finisher. He's really fun to watch. And then Timmy. He's fundamentally so sound. He's got so many moves in his bag that it's just impossible to stop him because you don't know what he's going to do. You can't predict it.
Yeah.
And having to play post defense, knowing that
everybody's
got the same 4 moves. He's got 20 they can use, and he can make 5 moves into 1 move into 3 different moves, which is incredible to me. And he lets the game come to him too. And if they'd be 6-0 right now, he'd be my 1.
So mine are, and they're the top 5 players that I've watched so far. Not because honestly, I don't have Sheboy or Timmy, and I think they're better than most of these guys. So these are just the top 5 players that have wowed me this year so far. 1, Anthony Black. I mean, he's Arkansas. They've had one of the best rebuilds I think the last 2 or 3 years for basketball. I mean, they're a serious contender this year, especially in the SEC, and from what we saw this year in the tournament. I mean, he looks really good. 2, Pete Nance. When he transferred from Northwestern to UNC, I was shocked a little bit. I thought he was going to transfer probably to a Power 5 team to where he could, like an Oklahoma State, to where he could just go in his bag and score how he did at Northwestern. When he came in at UNC, I thought he was being a 7th or 8th man off the bench because how stacked they are. He's worked his way up, and now he had 28 versus Iowa State. He had 28 versus one of those games versus a bad team that was close, and he was one of the reasons they pulled out and won that game. I think if he keeps us how it is, I mean, it's dangerous. He's looked really good. 3 is Peter Brooks from Michigan State. Last year, took only playing 2 minutes. Now he just had 18 and then had 15 the last night. He's looked really good. He's a wild beat. He's been shooting the ball lights out. He's probably going to be starting out after Aikens comes back for Michigan State, but he's going to be dangerous in the Big Ten. 4, Caleb Love. I think he's the reason they win and lose games. When they lose close games, it's because the late game he's going to take the shot. Everyone knows it. And the shot sometimes isn't the greatest shot, and he kind of forces it up too early, too late. I mean, with 35 seconds left in the shot clock, down by 2, I don't think you hope for the last shot. I think you go for a quick bucket, a quick 3 or a quick 2. Because they
trust your defense.
Trust your defense. That's what I would do as a coach, and that's what UNC's coach was yelling at him for. And then he kind of pulled up in 2 people's faces and airballed, and that was the game. So he's too talented not to have like top 5 though. The shots he makes, he's good. And then 5, he's really loving this year's Ryan Young. I mean, he gives Duke so much extra possessions. I mean, he doesn't score crazy good. He scores off double chance points. Those are big. I mean,
second chance points.
If you can give your team another possession, especially in close games like Xavier, you're doing your job. In Oregon State, I mean, that 30-point game, and he had 8 or 9 offensive rebounds just in the last 10 minutes. You could argue he's the reason they won that game. So I think he's really wild being shocked because I didn't think he'd start at Duke either.
That was good. And then how about Duquesne? They're playing really well this year, and boy Rotroff is
just had a double.
Yeah, he's doing really well.
Congrats.
And and I think they might be a tournament team. We'll see. There's usually 2 or 3 A-10 teams that sneak in.
Yeah, I mean it's becoming a more respectful conference every year.
They're becoming like a Big Ten, or not Big Ten. Jeez. Like a Big East. They're becoming like what the Big East used to be.
I can see Davidson, St. Bonaventure, and
VCU and Duquesne all building up. Force and Dayton,
They got a great. I mean, they could have 4 or 5 teams to turn this year. That's a tournament that's starting to get more respected every year.
Yeah.
All right, what are your hot takes?
Oh, hot takes for college football. Hot take. Michigan really struggles in the playoffs. I don't think they're built for it. I think they'll probably end up playing like a...
I think Gonzaga, they go way deeper, especially the big man. They should win that game by more. At Texas, that's a game I'll give them. That's an okay loss, I guess. I mean, you lost by a lot, but Texas wasn't missing. They were contesting the shots. It's just Marcus Carter's that good. I think the pre-loss is unexcusable, though. I mean, the Cards didn't look like they wanted to be there. Timmy was the only player that showed any will to win. But I guess we'll see. They still have a couple more hard games to play, and that's when we'll see the real Gonzaga, because they're going to storm through their conference, which is annoying. I think it's time for them, just for basketball, to jump to another conference.
Because they don't have any other relevant sport.
Like, it's time to make that jump. Because until recently, that has cost you a lot. You don't play teams. It's what helps you determine.
Join the Pac-12.
Yeah.
That make more sense. You're in Washington, I think. Washington or Oregon, one of the two. And join the Pac-12 or the Big 12. Have something to compete with. It's
better to play competition like that and get ready for March, except for playing Portland State and Pepperdine every day. Because that's why teams like last year, they lost to
St. Mary's.
No.
Last year.
Well, yeah, they lost to that, but they lost the tournament to
Baylor. No. Who did they lose to?
It's on the tip of my tongue.
You spit it out. Spit it out.
I'm trying to.
Come on, it's right there.
It was after they lost the Sweet 16. Arkansas. Yeah, they lost to Arkansas. And was Arkansas a better team? I don't know, probably not. They played in the roster, I'll tell you that much. But they played better competition, so they're ready for that type of game way more than Gonzaga is. Because Pepperdine doesn't get you ready for the tournament. St. Mary's, they're okay, but they're not there to like play at Kentucky or an LSU. I mean, so I think it's time to make the jump, but I still think they'll get back to that top 4 spot here pretty soon.
We'll see. I think if they're a top 10, top 15 level team, you don't need to be playing in a bottom level group of your bottom level conference.
Yeah.
So, let's get to the
We got enough on a story here.
Chad Ryland story. What happened with him?
If you don't know, Chad Ryland's a kicker on Maryland.
He's the kicker on Maryland. He's actually pretty solid.
You tell about what your birthday present was.
Alright, so for my birthday, we went to Maryland-Purdue. That was the game. Maryland got screwed against Purdue. Horrible calls. You know it was. You even said it was horrible.
It was horrible, but football sucked. Anyway, so I thought it'd be cool to DM some of the players.
Cut me off. Let me tell the story. You've been talking the entire time.
I want to tell my part of the story. My part of the story is hilarious. It's a part you don't know.
Alright. we've been DMing. Well, we have been sending messages to the players, basically trying to get on the field. We're in the third row by the 50-yard line, and we moved down to the first row, and we're like trying to get his attention, trying to like. He told us he had sent us a message. I'm bad at telling stories. You just tell the story.
Right. So I thought it'd be fun to DM some players and try to. I DM'd all the big ones. I DM'd Tuia.
I know.
Tuia, I DM'd him.
You told me.
Yep, DM'd him. Demas, I DM'd Jarrett. Some of the bigger players, I tried going. I even DM'd like the coach's daughter. I was trying to get something. Finally, sometime at night, I got a message back from the punter, Anthony. I don't know his last name. I haven't tried to pronounce it.
Specula.
And Chad Ryland. And I'm like, yeah, this is sweet. And Chad just said, yeah, after the game, I'll come up and tell you. I'll come up, get you guys, hook you guys. What was that? Anyway, hook you guys up, talk to him for a while, blah blah blah. And so that was like, I was stoked for that. That was really like my favorite part of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so they lost heartbreaking fashion. Great game-winning drive, but they lost a heartbreaker. And so I think that, and we're waiting there.
We waited for.
I'm looking. I see Ryland with his helmet off, walking into the locker room. I'm like,
and he looked right at us.
Dead eye, looked at us, and just walked. I'm like,
and
we stayed
waited,
for like 20 minutes.
No, 30 to 45 minutes.
And
we
we
sat
waited
at the benches waiting. He never showed up. And then I sent him a message after the game. Great game. Blah blah blah. Sorry we couldn't see you. Left it unseen. It's like okay.
That's even the worst part.
All right.
So we reached out to some athletes. We got the podcast. We got Roach Rock from the Works. Some pretty cool players, I think.
Yeah, and really cool one.
NFL legend. NFL legend. Anyway,
The mic doesn't work. It's a dummy right now.
Say that.
You can obviously tell. The quality of sound will still suck.
NFL legend.
Break the mic now. What are you doing?
You can touch it. It's not gonna
No,
break.
you can't move it like that.
You can't.
No, you can't.
You
That's
can't.
the one thing my dad said we couldn't do.
Your dad's an idiot.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I hope he sees that.
Anyway,
Dumbass.
imagine.
Stop. Continue. Okay.
Sorry. And we asked him on the podcast. He went up there and seen again.
So I messaged him one last time. I'll read you the exact message I sent him. So we'll get to Instagram. Chad Ryland. So as you can see, this dude has left us unseen and said, "Hey, my colleague and I have started a podcast. Once you have some free time this season, we would love to have you on and ask some questions and get to know the fans and get to know you more. Thanks, Owen." Left unseen. Then I messaged him on Sunday. "Hey Chad, the podcast is going well. We'd love to have you on. Just had a D1 player from Duquesne, awesome road trial, and we were still huge fans." Sent him the interview. Left it unseen. So that was basically his last chance.
I don't think he's interested.
Yeah, he's not interested. But he's just like, he lied to us. He straight up told us he'd come and get us, and ignored us.
He made it sound like we were going on the field. He said, "I'm gonna come hook you guys up." Yeah, I thought like, bro, we're going to the locker room. I thought we'd get on the field, talk to some other players. I mean, that was heartbreaking. That ruined my day. I could care less.
I was so upset. And then he just left it unseen after. He liked the message, and I said, "Bummer you lost." But that's the Chad Ryland story. I don't really like the dude anymore. I hate it when he makes a field goal. He had freaking 3 or 4 against Rutgers too on senior night. But anyways, thanks for listening. It was a good podcast.
Yeah,
We'll get this set up a little bit, set up more, and get this thing working.
don't touch it.
I actually not.
Don't touch
I'm
it.
not moving it.
Don't even think about it.
And we'll get this thing set up. We couldn't do it today, and it just looks kind of cool. But we'll have a cool podcast next week. We're getting sponsored by Jimenez Basketball Academy, Jimenez Basketball Academy, and we're happy to have that too. He's an awesome guy, good basketball trainer out of Pettisville, and you can check him out. It's JBA. And we're going to interview a pro player named Dave Zamora next week on December 4th, and that'll be fun.
We gotta do our research.
Yeah, dude. I watched a 40-minute podcast. I got whole notes on him. But he's a cool guy, and great player to have played with him. It's cool.
Yeah.
So,
Can't wait.
thanks for listening. Appreciate it.